Hey Gator fans, happy Wednesday. It has been a really busy week in the Wilbur household. So I just wanted to hop on and chat with you guys about a few different things that are going on this week. We're going to jump right into it in this video presented by BetUS. All right, so DJ Lagway, let's talk about it. Coach Napier said in his press conference at the beginning of the week that, the news was better than they had initially anticipated and didn't rule him out for Saturday. So, I have been told that it would be very shocking if he plays on Saturday, right? I'm not telling you that with 100% certainty he absolutely isn't. I would be really floored if he does, though. He's got a significant hamstring injury. It may not be as significant as they initially thought, but that doesn't mean that it is, some minor thing by any means. I know that he wants to play. I'm sure playing in front of, fans in his home state is important to him. I know he's a competitor. I know he wants to win. So I understand the concept of him wanting to rush back from this. I just don't know that I think Saturday is even remotely possible. I will say I could also understand from Coach Napier's point of view, maybe a little bit of gamesmanship here, right? It is not the worst thing to have Texas have to prepare for more than one quarterback, particularly when one of those quarterbacks is DJ Lagway. So even if you just waste a few hours of Texas's time, that's kind of a win for the Gators, right? So I think there's, probably several reasons why this is kind of being floated around about him not being fully out from Saturday. I would be shocked if he plays, though. All right. So also, guys, do me a favor. I have some really juicy recruiting news over on my Patreon account. If you have any interest, go over patreon.com/AlliePeak. You can find me on there. And I've got some tidbits you might be interested in. There is a big recruiting win coming, though. So that is what I'll tell you now. If you want even more information, go check out the Patreon. The link will be in this video as well. So good news coming on that front, though. Let's talk a little bit about Trey Wilson. On social media this week, he posted a picture of himself in a wheelchair. He has had surgery. He's done for the year. It is my understanding that it's a hip injury. I think the timing of this is interesting, right? We kept hearing he might be back, he might be back, he might be back. Now he has season-ending surgery. So he's also played only in 4 games, which means a red shirt is still absolutely on the table for him. It's my understanding that this is an injury that is a real injury. Absolutely. He did have surgery. All of that is real. I don't know if it's a surgery he needed to have this week. Maybe could have waited to the end of the season if he wanted to play. I don't know. That's kind of been hinted to me a little bit. But regardless, whatever the reason is, he did have a significant enough injury that he needed surgery. He is out for the remainder of the season. That is a huge loss for the Gators. I will be interested to see if he is someone that hits the transfer portal. He has not said that, at least not publicly, at least not anything, that I have heard. But he hits that 4-game mark. He can redshirt. There is some uncertainty at the coaching position at UF. So I don't know. Something to keep an eye on. Another thing I want to circle around to is there are some national folks implying that the cake has already been baked with Napier. Josh Pate, JD Pickell, etc. They have said, listen, it is not enough to keep the locker room. He's got to win. And I tend to agree with them on this. I agree that keeping the locker room is really important. I agree that these guys are all continuing to fight for him. And I think that's important for whether or not you decide to fire him mid-season or at the end of the season if he doesn't hit whatever benchmark the powers that be are set for him, right? But I don't think whether or not the locker room is bought in should be the end-all, be-all, because the players don't know what the players don't know, right? And listen, I want them to love their coach. I want them to get up for who their coach is, who they're playing for. I want them to be bought in, all of those things. But I think back to when Coach Zook was a coach, and at least from my husband's point of view, he didn't want Zook fired, right? He thought they were putting in their all. They wanted to win, and they knew that they weren't, and so they were disappointed in that aspect. But they didn't think it had to do with their their effort, what was expected of them, what was being coached into them, any of that. And then Urban Meyer came around and they realized that they could work harder, that they could be bigger, stronger, faster, tougher. And I think that there is a chance that this is a locker room that 100% backs their coach, 100% thinks they're doing all the things they need to do to win, but they aren't, right? And they don't know what they don't know. So I don't want anybody to get hung up on the locker room still being bought in as the end all be all part of this, because I don't think it is. I do think it's a good reason to keep him through the end of the season, though, and let this play out and see, can he get the correct number of wins that he needs to get this program over the hump and come back for year 4? I don't know. I mean, I'm rooting for that. I always want Florida to win. So if he wins out and he becomes the coach for the 4th season in a row, perfect. That's great. That means the Gators are winning. Nobody should get wrapped up into the fact that they are still playing hard and think that like that's the final decision maker. I'm going to talk a little bit more about Napier in a minute, but first I want to give some love to BetUS. Right now, the Gators are a 3-touchdown dog to Texas, and you can bet on that or any game this weekend over at BetUS. If you use our code YouTube150, you get 150% bonus on your first deposit, and then you get 125% on your next 2 deposits. All of that up to $2,000. We appreciate BetUS for their support. Okay, so back to Napier. 6-6. We have said on this channel all year, all summer, spring, whatever, 6-6 is probably the benchmark, but that it also could depend on what it looks like. I think a lot of people made their mind up after watching Miami and Texas A&M. And, I was one of those people that really didn't like what I saw. Didn't look like there was a lot of effort. We looked unprepared. I don't love the idea that we've spent 8 months preparing and we come out and look so flat, so dead, no game plan. I didn't love it. I felt like I saw more of the same against Texas A&M. I do think the Gators have turned a quarter since then. I don't know exactly what has changed. I don't know if something has changed in the play calling aspect on offense or defense. I can tell you the effort has changed specifically on defense. They are giving 100% balls to the walls every time, and they are improving in that aspect. So can minds be changed? I mean, maybe, right? If you had beat Tennessee, if you had found a way to beat Georgia, I think we would be looking at this team differently. And listen, I do not in any way blame the Georgia loss on this coaching staff. I think there's a lot of losses in the last 2.5 years that you can point to that you could give a serious amount of blame to the coaching staff. Georgia is not one of them. That was a series of unfortunate events, right? But it was a good game plan. The team was prepared. They weren't scared. They were ready to go. DJ Lagway looked good until he got hurt. I think Florida wins that game if Lagway doesn't go down. But the problem is you are 1-9 against your rivals going into it, right? If you were 6-4, right? 7-3, your starting quarterback goes down, who's really, your original second string quarterback, and 7 defensive players go out with injuries, you get a mulligan for that game against the number 2 team in the country who you had on the ropes most of the game, right? But you were 1-9 going into it. And so there's less grace extended because of that, right? And then Tennessee game, you should have won that game. I don't think year 3, it's enough to be close against these teams. You should be competitive against your rivals. You got to do more. Now, can minds be changed if we pull an upset or 2 off in the next couple sets of games? Potentially. Saturday we go to Texas. You're going with a 3rd string quarterback against a really good Texas team. The odds are not in your favor. You come home, you play LSU. It's a 3:30 game. This is a team that, I feel like always tends to look better at the end of the season than the beginning of the season. They're kind of clicking on all cylinders. If you beat them, it is an upset. And, that would be you stealing one away. I don't know how likely that is unless Lagway's back. Same thing for Ole Miss. Now, Florida State, I think Florida can still beat with a 3rd string quarterback. But you're running out of opportunities to pull off those upsets now at this point. And I do think you're going to need at least one upset coupled with that FSU game for him to be back for year 4. And the other part of this is that recruiting in general is just sort of damning. Fired Dan Mullen because we wanted an elite recruiter. We gave up an elite game day coach because we felt like it was more important to have an elite recruiter and a pretty good game day coach. I don't know that he has turned out to be either of those things. Florida's currently sitting with like the 50th ranked class, 15 out of 16 in the SEC. It's not good enough. I don't think Dan Mullen ever had a class ranked that low. If Napier was to stay, there's a really solid core of young talent because recruiting prior to this year has been good. And obviously Lagway is a huge piece to this puzzle. He is a generational talent, in my opinion. But Florida's going to have to add talent. And are they in a position to be able to do that? I imagine it's been tough to recruit with this season and the uncertainty. But if he had a better class right now, I think that would help his case for that year 4. As I implied earlier, I am expecting some good news from UF on that front here soon. And like I said, I dropped some news over on my Patreon about that. So go head over there and check it out. So what are your thoughts? What do you think about Lagway? What do you think about Napier's job security in general at this point? We're going to preview the Texas game tonight at 8:30 p.m., so make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss it. I appreciate BetUS for their support, and as always, go Gators.